I stared at the email confirmation on my laptop screen, reading the cancellation notice for the third time that morning. My flight to Hawaii, the one I had booked 6 months ago for my sister Victoria's destination wedding, had been canceled. Not by the airline, by my own family. The message came from my mother's email account, brief and cold. We've decided to reallocate the travel budget. Victoria needs the funds for additional guests. You understand. I understood perfectly. I had always understood. In my family, I was the afterthought, the daughter who chose the wrong path, the one who embarrassed them at dinner parties when they explained what I did for a living. While Victoria studied architecture at an Ivy League school and secured a position at a prestigious firm in Boston, I had dropped out of college to start my own business. A cleaning business, of all things. My parents never forgave me for that decision. They saw it as a betrayal of their investment in my education, a slap in the face to their social standing. What would their country club friends think when they learned their daughter scrubbed toilets for a living? Except I did not scrub toilets anymore. I had not personally cleaned a single bathroom in 5 years. What started as a one-woman operation with a bucket and a dream had transformed into something far bigger than anyone in my family bothered to notice. Clearview Services now employed over 300 people across 7 cities, with contracts spanning luxury hotels, corporate offices, medical facilities, and high-end residential properties. We had expanded into property management, facility maintenance, and specialized sanitation services. Last year alone, our revenue exceeded $20 million. But my family never asked about my business. They never wanted to know how I went from cleaning houses to managing a small empire. To them, I would always be the disappointment, the black sheep who rejected their vision of success. I closed my laptop and walked to the window of my downtown Seattle apartment. The city stretched before me, gray skies promising rain. My phone buzzed with a text message from Victoria. Mom told me about the ticket. Sorry, Audrey. You know how weddings are. Everything is so expensive. Maybe you can come visit us after the honeymoon. No apology for excluding me. No acknowledgement that this was her wedding, one of the most important days of her life, and she was letting our parents erase me from it. Just a casual suggestion that I might visit later, like I was a distant acquaintance instead of her only sister. I typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on silence. What could I say that would penetrate the bubble of indifference my family had wrapped around themselves? My business partner Julian called an hour later. He had been with me since the early days, when we were just 2 people with a cleaning cart and ambition. He understood my family situation better than anyone. I heard, he said without preamble. Your mother's assistant called to cancel the hotel room we had booked for you. She was quite rude about it. I sat down heavily on my couch. They canceled my hotel room too. Apparently you were taking up space that could be used for Victoria's friends from college. The assistant made it very clear that your presence was not essential to the wedding festivities. Julian paused. Audrey, I know you want to believe they will come around eventually, but this is beyond normal family dynamics. This is deliberate exclusion. He was right. I knew he was right. But acknowledging it meant accepting a truth I had spent years trying to deny. My family did not love me the way families should. They tolerated me at best, resented me at worst. What resort are they using? I asked suddenly. Julian seemed surprised by the question. Some place called Paradise Bay Resort on the Big Island. Why? I opened my laptop again, pulling up the resort's website. Paradise Bay Resort sprawled across 15 acres of pristine Hawaiian coastline, featuring 200 luxury suites, 3 restaurants, a world-class spa, and a private beach. The images showed palm trees swaying against turquoise water, couples dining under tiki torches, wedding ceremonies on white sand beaches. How much? I asked. How much what? How much would it cost to buy it? Julian laughed, then fell silent when he realized I was serious. Audrey, you cannot be thinking what I think you are thinking. But I was. For the first time in my life, I was thinking clearly about what I wanted versus what my family expected. They had canceled my ticket, revoked my invitation, erased me from Victoria's special day. They thought I would slink away quietly, accept my rejection with grace, maybe send a nice gift to prove I harbored no hard feelings. They thought wrong. "Find out who owns it," I said. "Find out if they are interested in selling. And Julian, I want this done quickly. The wedding is in 3 weeks." After he hung up, I sat in my apartment as rain began pattering against the windows. I thought about all the family gatherings where I had been subtly excluded, all the achievements they had dismissed, all the times they had made me feel small for choosing my own path. I thought about Victoria, who used to be my best friend before college changed her, before she learned to see me through our parents' eyes. Julian called back the next morning with information that made my heart race. Paradise Bay Resort was, in fact, for sale. The current owners, a Japanese investment group, had been trying to offload the property for 8 months. The tourism industry had taken a hit, maintenance costs were astronomical, and they wanted out before the next hurricane season brought more financial headaches. "They are asking $38 million, Julian said. "But my contact thinks they would take 32 if we moved fast. The property is profitable, but barely. It needs significant reinvestment to compete with the newer resorts going up nearby." I did some quick mental math. I had $12 million in liquid assets, another $8 million I could pull from investments without too much penalty. The business was worth considerably more, but I did not want to drain its operating capital. That meant I needed financing for the rest. "Set up a meeting with our banking contacts," I said, "and pull together a full financial analysis of the resort. I want to know every revenue stream, every expense, every potential opportunity." "You are really doing this," Julian said, and I could hear the mixture of admiration and concern in his voice. "Audrey, this is not just buying a resort to prove a point. This is a massive investment that will require serious management." "I know, but think about it, Julian. We have been looking at expanding into hospitality services. We already have the infrastructure for housekeeping, maintenance, facilities management. A resort property would let us test those services in an integrated environment. This could be a smart business move. And the fact that your sister is getting married there in 3 weeks?" I smiled. "Consider that a bonus." Over the next 10 days, I barely slept. My team worked around the clock to analyze the resort's financials, negotiate with the sellers, and secure financing. I leveraged everything I had built, called in every favor, and made promises to bankers who initially laughed at the timeline until they saw how serious I was. The resort was indeed profitable, but its margins were thin. The previous owners had let standards slip, cutting corners on maintenance and service to preserve cash flow. Guest reviews complained about outdated rooms, mediocre food, and inattentive staff. The property had so much potential, but it needed someone willing to invest not just money, but time and expertise. I saw opportunity where others saw problems. My company specialized in exactly what Paradise Bay needed: professional cleaning services, efficient maintenance systems, and the kind of attention to detail that transformed good properties into exceptional ones. We could turn this resort around, while simultaneously expanding our service offerings into the hospitality sector. The sellers were motivated, almost desperate. When I offered $34 million with a guarantee to close in 7 days, they practically threw the keys at me. My lawyers worked through the night drafting contracts. My accountants structured a deal that split the purchase between personal acquisition and corporate investment, and my bankers, once they understood the potential, came through with financing that made the whole thing possible. Victoria called me twice during this period. The first time, she wanted to know if I had received her wedding invitation, the physical one, even though they had canceled my travel arrangements. I told her it had arrived, thanked her, and got off the phone as quickly as possible. The second time, she asked if I was planning to send a gift from her registry. "Something nice, Audrey," she said. "Not something practical. This is my wedding, not a housewarming party." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Don't worry, Victoria. I'll send something memorable. On the 7th day, I signed the papers. Paradise Bay Resort was mine. The transaction was structured carefully. 60% owned by me personally, 40% by Clearview Services as a corporate asset. This protected my business while giving me control of the property. My lawyers set up a management structure that would shield my identity as the new owner until I was ready to reveal it. I called the resort's general manager, a competent man named Diego, who had been doing his best with limited resources. He sounded shocked when I introduced myself as the new owner. I want to be clear about something, I told him. Your job is safe. In fact, I am giving you a 20% raise and a budget to fix everything you have been complaining about for the last 2 years. But I need your complete discretion about the ownership change. As far as anyone is concerned, especially anyone asking about the wedding booking for Victoria Hayes in 2 weeks, the resort is still under the previous management. Diego was silent for a moment. The Hayes wedding. That is the one with the bride's family who keep calling with special demands and complaints about costs? I smiled. That would be them. I understand, Miss Audrey, and thank you. You have no idea how long I have been waiting for an owner who actually cares about this place. The next week was a whirlwind of activity. I flew to Hawaii 3 times, spending long hours with Diego and his team, learning every aspect of the resort's operations. I walked every hallway, inspected every room, tasted food from all 3 restaurants, and met with department heads to understand their challenges and needs. The staff was talented, but demoralized. The previous owners had treated them as expendable, denying requests for equipment upgrades, training programs, and fair wages. I changed that immediately. I approved new linens for every room, updated kitchen equipment, hired additional staff for housekeeping and maintenance, and implemented a profit-sharing program that gave every employee a stake in the resort's success. Why are you doing all this right before a big wedding? Diego asked as we reviewed the renovation schedule. Most new owners would wait until after the event to make major changes. Because I want this place to be perfect, I said. I want every guest who walks through these doors to have an experience they will never forget. I also wanted my family to see what they had dismissed, to understand what I had built while they were busy being embarrassed by me. But I did not say that part out loud. My parents remained oblivious to everything. They were too focused on Victoria's wedding to notice that I had gone radio silent. My mother called once to tell me that several guests had asked about me, and she had told them I was too busy with my little business to attend. She said this as if it were a perfectly reasonable explanation, as if my absence was a given. That is fine, Mother, I said. I actually do have some business to attend to in Hawaii around that time. Oh, you are coming to the islands anyway? Well, I suppose you could stop by the resort and say hello to everyone. Though I should warn you, it is a very exclusive event. The guest list was carefully curated. The dismissal in her voice made my jaw clench. I will keep that in mind. Victoria texted me a few days before the wedding with a photo of her dress. It was beautiful, an elegant gown that probably cost more than most people's cars. I responded with a simple congratulations, and she replied with a string of excited emojis and a comment about how perfect everything was going to be. I wondered if she felt any guilt about excluding me. I wondered if she had fought our parents when they decided to cancel my ticket, or if she had simply accepted their decision without question. Part of me wanted to believe she still cared about me, that somewhere under the layers of privilege and parental influence, my little sister still existed. But then she sent another text. By the way, don't feel bad about missing the wedding. Honestly, it is probably better this way. You know how awkward these fancy events can be for people who are not used to them. Any sympathy I felt evaporated. She was not just accepting my exclusion, she was justifying it, suggesting I would not fit in anyway. As if I had not spent the last decade building a business that required constant interaction with high-end clients, luxury properties, and demanding standards. As if I was still the college dropout who did not belong in their world. I did not respond to that text, Instead, I called Diego. "How are the preparations coming?" "Everything is on schedule," he said. "The renovations are complete, the new staff is trained, and the kitchen is ready to exceed expectations. I have to say, Miss Audrey, this place has never looked better. The Hayes family is going to be impressed." "Good. Now, I need you to do something for me. When they arrive and ask about the new ownership, if they ask at all, you can mention that the resort was recently acquired by a private investor based in Seattle. Don't volunteer my name unless they specifically press for it. And if my family happens to mention me, if they say anything about my absence or my business, I want you to take note of exactly what they say." Diego was quiet for a moment. "This is personal, is it not?" "Very personal, but it is also business. I believe in what we are building here, Diego. I believe Paradise Bay can be one of the premier resorts in Hawaii. And I believe the Hayes wedding is going to be the perfect showcase for what we are capable of." "Understood. We will make sure everything is flawless." I hung up and looked out at the Seattle skyline one more time before my flight to Hawaii. My bags were packed, my plans were set, and my family had no idea what was waiting for them. They thought they had excluded me from Victoria's special day. They thought they had put me in my place, reminded me that I did not belong in their world of country clubs and prestigious careers. They were about to learn that I had not just entered their world. I had bought it. I arrived at Paradise Bay Resort 3 days before the wedding, checking into the owner's suite that Diego had prepared for me. The room was stunning, a private villa separate from the main building with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. The renovation team had done incredible work. Every surface gleamed, the furnishings were luxurious but tasteful, and the attention to detail was exactly what I had demanded. Diego met me on the terrace with a welcome drink and a detailed briefing. "The Hayes family arrives tomorrow," he said, consulting his tablet. "We have 37 rooms reserved for their party. The bride's parents are in the presidential suite, the bride and groom in the honeymoon villa. The ceremony is scheduled for sunset on the beach 3 days from now, followed by a reception in the grand ballroom." "And my room?" I asked. "The one they canceled?" "Reassigned to one of the bride's sorority sisters. A woman named Bethany who called yesterday to request a room upgrade because she claims to have allergies to standard linens." I sipped my drink, a perfect blend of passion fruit and rum. "Make sure Bethany gets her upgrade. In fact, I want every single guest in the Hayes party to receive exceptional service. Nothing but the best." Diego raised an eyebrow. "You want us to go above and beyond for the family that excluded you from the wedding?" "I want you to go above and beyond because we are in the hospitality business, and we are going to prove that Paradise Bay Resort is world-class. What my family does with that experience is up to them. But I had plans beyond excellent service. I had spent the last few days reviewing every detail of Victoria's wedding arrangements, and I had made some interesting discoveries. My parents had negotiated aggressively on price, demanding discounts and complimentary upgrades while simultaneously making dozens of special requests. They had changed the menu 3 times, insisted on custom decorations, and required the resort to accommodate their timeline, even when it conflicted with other bookings. The previous owners had agreed to almost everything, desperate to keep the booking during a slow season. But I was not the previous owners. I was going to honor every agreement, provide every service, and exceed every expectation. And then I was going to make sure my family understood exactly who had made it all possible. The next afternoon, I watched from my villa as the Hayes wedding party began arriving. I recognized my mother immediately, imperious in designer sunglasses and a flowing caftan, directing staff to handle her luggage as if she owned the place. My father followed, checking his phone and looking vaguely annoyed by everything. Victoria appeared last, radiant and excited, clinging to her fiancé Nathan's arm while she pointed out features of the resort. None of them had any idea I was there. I had instructed Diego to keep my presence confidential, and the owner's villa was secluded enough that casual guests would never see it. I could move around the property freely, just another guest enjoying paradise. I decided to test this anonymity by visiting the pool area that evening. I wore a simple sundress and sunglasses, carrying a book and a glass of wine. The Hayes party had taken over the main pool, laughing loudly and calling for servers. I found a quiet corner and settled in to observe. Victoria held court in the center of the group, surrounded by her bridesmaids. They were discussing the wedding plans in voices loud enough for everyone to hear, detailing the expense and exclusivity of every element. My mother circulated among the guests, making sure everyone understood how much effort had gone into creating this perfect celebration. We had to be very selective about the guest list, I heard her tell someone. A destination wedding is such an intimate affair. We only wanted people who truly matter to Victoria. I watched her over the rim of my sunglasses, feeling the familiar sting of exclusion. But this time, the sting came with something else. A cold, clear certainty that I had made the right decision. My family did not deserve my presence at this wedding. They had made that clear through their actions. What they deserved was a lesson in consequences. One of Victoria's friends, a blonde woman who kept adjusting her designer swimsuit, complained loudly about the resort. I mean, it is pretty, but it is not exactly the Four Seasons, is it? Victoria, are you sure this was the best choice? My sister laughed. Honestly, Bethany, we had to make some compromises on budget. You know how expensive destination weddings are, but I think it is charming in a rustic sort of way. Rustic. My $34 million resort was rustic. I sipped my wine and said nothing, but I made a mental note to tell Diego about the comment. Let them think the place was charming and rustic. Their opinions would change soon enough. Nathan, Victoria's fiancé, seemed less impressed with the display of wealth around him. He sat slightly apart from the group, looking uncomfortable in swim trunks that probably cost more than his monthly rent. I had met Nathan a few times before the engagement. He was an environmental engineer from a middle-class family, someone who had earned his success rather than inherited it. I had always liked him, and I wondered what he thought of the spectacle my family was creating. As if sensing my observation, Nathan looked up and caught my eye. I tensed, worried he might recognize me, but he simply nodded politely and returned to his book. Relief and disappointment warred within me. Part of me wanted to be recognized, wanted someone from my family to notice I was there. But a larger part understood that anonymity was power right now. The next day brought more revealing moments. I had breakfast in one of the resort's restaurants, deliberately choosing a table near where my parents were dining with some of Victoria's future in-laws. The conversation was predictable. My mother dominated the discussion while my father nodded along, both of them working hard to present the image of a perfect family. We have 2 daughters, my mother was saying. Victoria, of course, who is getting married this weekend. She is an architect in Boston. Very successful, very talented. And our other daughter, Audrey, who, well, she chose a different path. The way she said different path made it sound like I had chosen a life of crime rather than entrepreneurship. I bit into my croissant and listened. What does Audrey do? Nathan's mother asked politely. My mother waved her hand dismissively. She runs a cleaning company. It keeps her busy, and I suppose she is happy with it. She could not make it to the wedding, unfortunately. Business obligations. You know how it is. Business obligations. As if I had simply been too busy to attend, rather than actively excluded. The lie was so smooth, so practiced, that I wondered how many times she had told it. How many people had she explained away my absence to, painting me as the daughter who was too wrapped up in her little business to celebrate her sister's happiness. Nathan's mother looked surprised. A cleaning company? That is quite entrepreneurial. How large is her business? Oh, I have no idea, my mother said with a light laugh. We don't really discuss it. You know how some people are about their work. They make it their whole identity. The irony was staggering. My family made their careers and social status their entire identity, but somehow I was the one who had gone too far in defining myself through my work. I finished my breakfast and left before I said something I would regret. Diego found me in the garden afterwards, looking concerned. Miss Audrey, One of the bridesmaids just demanded that we fire a housekeeper because she did not fold the towels correctly. The housekeeper is one of our best employees, and the towels were folded to hotel industry standard. I wanted to check with you before responding. Which bridesmaid? The blonde one, Bethany. Of course it was Bethany. I had been watching her treat the staff with casual cruelty since she arrived, snapping her fingers for service and complaining about everything from the water temperature to the thread count of the sheets. Tell Bethany that we value all our employees highly, and that the towels are folded according to luxury resort standards. If she is unsatisfied with the service, we would be happy to note her feedback for future visits, but we will not be firing anyone over towel folding. Diego grinned. She is not going to like that. Then she can take it up with the management. In fact, if she pushes the issue, tell her the new owner has very strict policies about employee treatment. See if that makes her pause. It did not make her pause. An hour later, Diego called to tell me that Bethany had demanded to speak with the owner personally, insisting that any resort worth staying at would prioritize guest satisfaction over employee feelings. She was making a scene in the lobby, and other guests were starting to notice. I made a decision. It was time to start revealing myself, piece by piece. I walked into the lobby wearing a professional linen suit, my hair pulled back, every inch the successful businesswoman I had become. Bethany was in full tirade mode, waving her arms and complaining loudly to anyone who would listen. Diego stood nearby, maintaining his professional composure while she berated him. "Excuse me," I said, approaching the desk. "I understand there is a problem." Bethany turned to me, her expression shifting from anger to relief. Finally, she seemed to think, someone who looked like management. "Yes, there is a massive problem. I demanded that incompetent housekeeper be fired, and your manager here is refusing. Do you know who I am? Do you know whose wedding this resort is hosting?" "I am aware of the Hayes wedding," I said calmly. "And I am the owner of this resort. Perhaps you could explain the situation to me directly." The lobby went quiet. Bethany's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Behind the reception desk, I saw one of the employees fighting back a smile. "You are the owner?" Bethany finally managed. "But you look so young." I smiled, a professional expression that did not reach my eyes. "I appreciate the observation. Now, about this housekeeper you wanted fired. Can you explain exactly what she did wrong?" Bethany recovered some of her bluster. She folded the towels incorrectly, and when I pointed it out, she did not even apologize properly. It was very unprofessional. "I see. And what would you consider the correct way to fold a towel?" "Well, that is not the point. The point is that I should not have to deal with substandard service at a resort like this." "You are absolutely right," I agreed. "You should not have to deal with substandard service, which is why I have spent the last 2 weeks upgrading every aspect of this resort, training staff to the highest standards, and ensuring that every guest receives exceptional care. My housekeeper folded those towels according to luxury hotel industry standards. If you have a different preference, we would be happy to accommodate that. But I will not fire an excellent employee because a guest does not understand hospitality industry protocols." Bethany's face turned red. "This is outrageous. Wait until Victoria's family hears about this. Do you know who her parents are? They will ruin you." I leaned against the reception desk, completely at ease. "Actually, I am quite familiar with the Hayes family. Please, feel free to share your concerns with them. I would be very interested to hear their perspective on the situation." Bethany stormed off, pulling out her phone as she went. I could see her texting furiously, no doubt complaining to Victoria about the terrible treatment she was receiving. Diego waited until she was out of earshot before speaking. "That was impressive, Miss Audrey. But you realize she is going to make trouble now? Let her. This is just the beginning." Within an hour, my mother called the resort demanding to speak with the owner. Diego transferred the call to my villa, and I answered on the third ring. "Paradise Bay Resort, this is Audrey speaking. How may I help you?" There was a long pause. Audrey? What are you doing answering the phone at the resort? Are you there as a guest? Something like that. What can I do for you, Mother? Her voice took on the sharp edge I knew so well. One of Victoria's bridesmaids just told me that the resort owner was incredibly rude to her. She is very upset, and frankly, so am I. We are paying a great deal of money for this wedding, and we expect better treatment. I was not rude to Bethany, I said calmly. I simply explained that we would not be firing an employee over a non-issue. Our standards are quite high here. Well, they should not be higher than guest satisfaction. I think we need to speak with someone in charge. I smiled at the ocean view from my window. You are speaking with someone in charge. I am the owner of Paradise Bay Resort. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long, I thought she had hung up. Finally. That is not funny, Audrey. Stop playing games and put me through to the actual owner. I am the actual owner. I purchased this resort 2 weeks ago. Would you like me to send you a copy of the purchase documents? Another long silence. When my mother spoke again, her voice shook with something between disbelief and fury. You bought a resort? You bought this resort? The one where your sister is getting married? That is correct. $34 million, if you are curious about the price. It seemed like a good investment opportunity. I do not even know what to say. Is this some kind of joke? Some kind of revenge for not inviting you to the wedding? The accusation stung because it was partially true, but only partially. This is business, Mother. I saw an opportunity to expand my company into the hospitality sector, and I took it. The fact that Victoria chose this resort for her wedding is simply a coincidence. A coincidence? You expect me to believe that? Believe what you want. I am here as the owner, and I intend to make sure Victoria's wedding is absolutely perfect. Now, unless you have specific concerns about the resort services, I should get back to work. We have a very important event to prepare for. I hung up before she could respond, my heart pounding with adrenaline. The secret was out now, or at least partially out. My mother knew, which meant my father would know within minutes, and Victoria would know shortly after that. The question was what they would do with the information. I did not have to wait long for an answer. 20 minutes later, my father called. Unlike my mother's barely controlled fury, his voice was cold and measured, the tone he used when negotiating business deals. Audrey, your mother tells me you have purchased this resort. That is correct. I see. And you did not think to mention this to your family? You did not think we might want to know that our daughter had somehow acquired $34 million and decided to invest it in a property where her sister is holding her wedding? I did not think you would be interested, I said honestly. You have never been interested in my business before. Why would this be different? Because this is not just business, Audrey. This is clearly some sort of statement. Some sort of dramatic gesture designed to, what? Prove a point? Make us feel guilty? The only point I am trying to prove is that Paradise Bay Resort provides exceptional service. I have spent the last 2 weeks upgrading every aspect of this property. Victoria's wedding is going to be beautiful. And what do you want in return? What is this really about? The question caught me off guard. What did I want? Acknowledgement? Apology? Respect? All of the above and more. But I could not say that. Instead, I said, I want to run my resort successfully. That is all. My father made a sound of disbelief. I find that very hard to believe. You have always been stubborn, Audrey, but this takes it to a new level. I hope you know what you are doing. He hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in my villa, watching the sun begin its descent toward the horizon, and wondered if I did know what I was doing. I had set something in motion that I could not stop now, and I had no idea how it would end. Victoria called an hour later, and her voice was thick with tears. Audrey, is it true? Did you really buy this resort? Yes. But why? Why would you do this? Is it because they did not invite you? Because I wanted you there, I really did. But Mom and Dad said there was not enough room, and the budget was tight, and I did not know how to fight them on it. The tears in her voice made my chest ache. This was the Victoria I remembered. The little sister who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, who trusted me to protect her. But that Victoria had let our parents erase me from her wedding without fighting back, without even trying. I did not buy this resort to hurt you, Victoria. I bought it because it was a good business opportunity. Come on, Audrey. You bought the exact resort where I am getting married 3 weeks after I found out you were not invited. You cannot expect me to believe that is a coincidence. She was right, of course, but I could not admit the full truth. Could not tell her that I had spent years accumulating hurt and resentment, that their casual exclusion had finally pushed me to act. Does it matter why I bought it? The wedding is going to be perfect. I promise you that. That is not the point. Victoria's voice rose. The point is that you have made my wedding about you. Everyone is going to be talking about this. They are going to be wondering about the drama instead of celebrating Nathan and me. How could you do this? Victoria's accusation hung in the air between us. I took a slow breath, fighting back the anger and hurt that threatened to overwhelm my carefully maintained composure. I made your wedding about me? I repeated quietly. Victoria, you and Mom and Dad made it about me when you canceled my ticket in my hotel room, when you decided I was not important enough to attend, when you let Mom tell everyone I was too busy with my little business to come. You made me invisible, and now you are upset because I refused to disappear? Silence on the other end. Then, in a smaller voice, it was not like that. Then what was it like? Explain it to me, because from where I am standing, my own family decided I was not worth the cost of a plane ticket to see my only sister get married. The budget was tight, Victoria said, but she sounded uncertain now. And there were so many people we had to invite. Nathan's family, our parents' friends, my colleagues from work. But not me, not your sister. Everyone else made the cut, but I did not. Audrey, please. The wedding is in 2 days. Can we please not do this now? I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of years of dismissal and diminishment pressing down on me. You are right. We should not do this now. Your wedding should be perfect, and I meant what I said. I am going to make sure it is. But Victoria, after this is over, we need to have a real conversation about our family and the way I have been treated. Okay, she whispered. Okay. After she hung up, I sat on my terrace and watched the stars emerge over the ocean. Part of me wanted to call her back, to apologize, to make everything smooth and easy the way I always had. But I was tired of being the one who always accommodated, who always made myself smaller to fit into their world. I had bought this resort, yes, partially as revenge, but also as proof that I had built something substantial on my own terms. They could acknowledge that or not. The choice was theirs. The next day, the day before the wedding, I decided it was time to make my presence fully known. I had Diego arrange a meeting with all the wedding vendors, the florist, the photographer, the caterer, the musicians. They gathered in the resort's conference room, looking confused about why the new owner wanted to see them. I stood at the head of the table, wearing a crisp white shirt and tailored pants, every inch the professional businesswoman. Thank you all for coming. I wanted to introduce myself and make sure we are all aligned for tomorrow's event. I am Audrey, the new owner of Paradise Bay Resort. Some of you may also know me as the bride's sister. The room erupted in whispers. The florist, an elegant woman in her 50s, spoke first. You are Victoria's sister? The one who was not invited, yes. I smiled, but it was not a warm expression. But that is beside the point. Tomorrow, I want Victoria's wedding to be absolutely flawless. I want every flower perfect, every photograph beautiful, every dish exquisite. I want the music to be magical and the ceremony to be unforgettable. Can I count on all of you to deliver that? They nodded, still looking stunned. The photographer, a young man with expensive cameras slung around his neck, raised his hand tentatively. Does the bride know you own the resort now? She does. The whole family does. And I imagine there will be some tension, some drama, maybe some gossip among the guests. I need all of you to rise above that. I need you to be so professional, so excellent at your jobs, that no one can criticize any aspect of this event. Can you do that? Why? The caterer asked bluntly. Why do you want to make it perfect for them after they excluded you? I considered the question carefully. Because my sister deserves a beautiful wedding, regardless of how her family treated me. Because I am a professional, and I deliver exceptional service to all my clients. And because... I paused, allowing myself a small, genuine smile. Because the best revenge is not sabotage. It is succeeding so brilliantly that they cannot help but see what they dismissed. They understood. I could see it in their faces, the shift from confusion to respect. These were people who had built businesses through hard work and dedication, just like me. They knew what it meant to be underestimated. The rest of the day was spent in final preparations. I walked the beach where the ceremony would take place, checking every detail. The chairs were arranged in perfect rows, white fabric billowing gently in the ocean breeze. The archway where Victoria would take her vows was covered in tropical flowers, plumeria, orchids, hibiscus, creating a riot of color against the blue sky. The path she would walk was lined with tiki torches, ready to be lit at sunset. It was beautiful. It was perfect. It was everything a bride could want. My parents avoided me all day. I saw them from a distance, talking urgently with wedding guests, no doubt explaining the awkward situation of the resort owner being the excluded sister. I wondered what story they were telling, how they were spinning this to maintain their image of the perfect family. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful, the kind of perfect Hawaiian morning that seemed designed for celebrations. I watched the sunrise from my villa, drinking coffee and trying to calm the butterflies in my stomach. Today, everything I had worked for would come together. Today, my family would see exactly what I had accomplished. I dressed carefully, a simple but elegant dress in soft blue, understated jewelry, minimal makeup. I was not trying to upstage the bride, but I was also not going to hide. I was the owner of this resort, and I would conduct myself accordingly. Diego met me for a final walkthrough at 9 a.m. Everything is ready, he reported. The kitchen is prepared. The staff is briefed. The beach setup is complete. Miss Audrey, I have been in hospitality for 20 years, and I have never seen a more thoroughly planned event. Any issues with the family? He hesitated. Your mother requested to see the bills this morning. She seemed shocked by the final total. What did you tell her? That all charges were exactly as agreed upon in the original contract. She insisted there must be errors, that the previous owners had promised certain discounts. I showed her the documentation. Everything is legitimate. I nodded. My parents had negotiated aggressively with the previous owners, demanding discounts and complimentary services. Those owners had agreed to almost everything, desperate for the booking. But I had honored only the terms in the actual signed contract, nothing more. The verbal promises and implied discounts were not my problem. This was business, after all. The ceremony was scheduled for 5 p.m., time to end just as the sun touched the horizon. I spent the afternoon in my villa, watching the guests arrive and gather. They were dressed in wedding finery, laughing and taking photos, completely unaware of the undercurrents swirling through the event. At 4 p.m., Diego called. Miss Audrey, your mother is asking for you. She is in the bridal suite with Victoria. My heart sank. I had hoped to avoid any confrontations before the ceremony, but apparently that was not going to happen. I made my way to the bridal suite, knocked once, and entered. Victoria stood in front of a full-length mirror, wearing her wedding gown. She looked stunning, exactly like the bride she had always dreamed of being. My mother sat nearby, already dressed in an elegant mother-of-the-bride outfit, her expression cold and controlled. "Audrey," my mother said without preamble, "we need to discuss the bill." "The bill is exactly as contracted," I said calmly. "Every charge is documented and legitimate. The previous owners promised us discounts. They promised complimentary upgrades and services. You cannot simply ignore those agreements. Those promises were verbal. They are not in the contract. I am honoring everything that was agreed to in writing. If the previous owners made additional promises, that is between you and them, not me." My mother's face flushed with anger. "This is extortion. You are taking advantage of your sister's wedding to extort money from your own family." "I am running a business according to standard industry practices. If you feel the charges are unfair, you are welcome to dispute them through proper channels after the wedding. But right now, I suggest we focus on making sure Victoria has a beautiful ceremony." Victoria had been silent through this exchange, staring at her reflection. Now she turned to face us, and there were tears in her eyes. "Can you two please stop? Please? This is my wedding day. I do not want to spend it listening to you fight about money." My mother and I both fell silent, properly chastised. Victoria was right. This was her day, and we were ruining it with our conflict. "I am sorry," I said quietly. "You are right, Victoria. Today is about you and Nathan, not about me or money or family drama. You look beautiful, and you are going to have a perfect wedding. I promise." My mother said nothing, but she stood and smoothed her dress, preparing to leave. At the door, she paused and looked back at me. "I hope you are proud of yourself, Audrey. I hope this is worth it." Then she was gone, and I was alone with Victoria. My sister sat down heavily on the couch, careful not to wrinkle her dress. "She does not understand, does she? None of them do." "Understand what?" "What you have built, what you have accomplished. I looked up your company last night, Audrey. Clearview Services. Did you know you have a Wikipedia page? It says your company does over $20 million in annual revenue. It says you employ over 300 people. It says you are considered one of the most successful young entrepreneurs in the Pacific Northwest." I sat down beside Victoria, careful to keep some distance between us. "I did not know about the Wikipedia page. How could you not know? How could any of us not know? Audrey, you built an empire, and we treated you like you were running a small cleaning service out of your apartment. We were so wrong." The admission hung in the air between us. I wanted to accept it, to let it heal some of the hurt I had been carrying. But I was also cautious. Victoria had disappointed me before. "Why did you let them exclude me?" I asked quietly. "If you really wanted me here, why did you not fight for me?" Victoria wiped her eyes carefully, trying not to smudge her makeup. "Because I am weak. Because it was easier to go along with what Mom and Dad wanted than to stand up for you. Because I have spent my whole life trying to be the daughter they wanted, and I did not know how to break that pattern, even for you. I am so sorry, Audrey. I am so sorry." The tears were real, the regret genuine. I felt my own eyes sting with emotion. "I bought this resort because I was angry," I admitted. "I was hurt and angry, and I wanted to prove something. But I also bought it because it was a good investment, because I saw potential, because I wanted to expand my business. It was both things at once." I know, and honestly, I think it is brilliant. You took something that was meant to hurt you and turned it into an opportunity. That is very you. We sat in silence for a moment, two sisters who had grown apart, trying to find their way back to each other. Finally, Victoria stood and held out her hand. "Will you walk with me to the ceremony? Not as the resort owner, not as the excluded sister, but as my family?" I took her hand and stood. I would be honored. The ceremony was everything a wedding should be. The sun hung low over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The guests stood as Victoria walked down the aisle, her hand on our father's arm, her eyes locked on Nathan waiting at the altar. The music was perfect, the flowers were stunning, and the moment when Nathan saw Victoria in her dress, his expression of pure love and wonder made even my cynical heart soften. I stood in the back, watching my sister marry the man she loved, and felt the knot of anger and resentment in my chest begin to loosen. This was not about revenge anymore. This was about two people starting a life together, and that was beautiful regardless of the complicated family dynamics surrounding it. After the ceremony, as guests moved toward the reception, my father approached me. He looked uncomfortable, a rare expression on his usually confident face. "Audrey, that was a beautiful ceremony. The resort looks incredible." "Thank you." He cleared his throat. "I owe you an apology. Several apologies, actually. Your mother and I have not been fair to you. We have not recognized what you have accomplished, and we have let our own prejudices about your career choices blind us to your success. That was wrong of us." I studied his face, looking for signs of insincerity, but he seemed genuinely remorseful, genuinely willing to acknowledge his mistakes. "I appreciate that, Dad. But an apology is not enough. Things need to change. The way you talk about me, the way you dismiss my work, the way you made me feel like I was not important enough to attend my own sister's wedding, all of that needs to change. I understand, and I am willing to try. I cannot promise we will get it right immediately, but I am willing to try." It was not everything I wanted, but it was a start. I nodded. "Okay, let's try." The reception was held in the resort's grand ballroom, which we had transformed into a tropical paradise. Palm fronds and twinkling lights created an intimate atmosphere despite the room's size. The food was exceptional, the music was lively, and the guests seemed genuinely happy. I watched from the sidelines as Victoria and Nathan had their first dance, as my parents made toasts that carefully avoided mentioning the drama of the last few days, as the celebration unfolded exactly as I had planned. Diego appeared beside me, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "To a successful event," he said, handing me one. "To new beginnings," I countered, and we clinked glasses. As the evening wore on, something unexpected happened. Guests began approaching me, not to gossip or question, but to compliment the resort. They raved about the service, the accommodations, the attention to detail. They asked for my business card, wanted to book their own events, talked about the remarkable transformation they had heard the resort had undergone. Bethany, of all people, approached me with something resembling humility. "I owe you an apology," she said stiffly. "I was rude and demanding, and you handled it with a lot more grace than I deserved. This wedding has been incredible, and I can see now that you really know what you are doing." I accepted her apology with a gracious nod, though I could not help feeling a small sense of satisfaction. She had learned a lesson about treating service workers with respect, and that was worth something. As the evening wound down and guests began drifting away, Victoria found me on the terrace overlooking the ocean. She was still in her wedding dress, though she had kicked off her shoes and held a glass of champagne in one hand. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything. For making this day perfect. For forgiving me, at least a little bit. For being my sister even when I did not deserve it. You will always be my sister, Victoria. Even when you are infuriating." She laughed, and it was the sound of the girl I had grown up with, before college and careers and parental expectations had complicated everything. Nathan and I are going on our honeymoon tomorrow, but when we get back, I want us to have dinner, just the two of us. I want to hear about your business, about your life, about everything I have missed while I was being an idiot." "I would like that." She hugged me then, tight and fierce, and I hugged her back. It was not a complete reconciliation, not a magical solution to years of family dysfunction. But it was something. It was hope. In the weeks that followed, the consequences of my actions rippled outward in ways I had not fully anticipated. My parents, forced to confront their dismissal of my success, became more cautious in their interactions with me. They asked about my business, attended a Clearview Services event, and slowly began to understand what I had built. It was awkward at first, stilted conversations where everyone tried too hard, but gradually it became more natural. My mother, in particular, seemed shaken by the revelation of my success. She had defined herself so much by her daughter's achievements that my invisible accomplishments threw her entire worldview into question. She eventually admitted, during a difficult conversation 3 months after the wedding, that she had been jealous. Jealous that I had succeeded without her approval, without following her plan, without needing her validation. It was an honest admission that cost her pride to make, and I respected her for it. Bethany's complaints about the resort, and her subsequent humiliation when she learned I was the owner, somehow made it back to Victoria's friend group and social circle. She became something of a cautionary tale about treating service workers poorly. Several of Victoria's friends, upon hearing the full story, reached out to apologize for their own dismissive behavior. Not all of them, but enough to matter. Paradise Bay Resort flourished under my ownership. The upgrades we had implemented, the improved staff morale, and the publicity from Victoria's wedding all combined to make the resort more successful than it had been in years. We became known as the place where the owner had hosted her own sister's wedding despite being excluded from it, and surprisingly, that story attracted rather than repelled potential clients. People appreciated the professionalism, the refusal to sabotage despite personal hurt, the commitment to excellence regardless of circumstances. Diego became not just my general manager, but a true partner in the resort's success. Together, we implemented more changes, brought in more corporate clients from Clearview Services, and established Paradise Bay as a premier destination. Within a year, the resort was not just profitable, but thriving, and my initial investment was looking smarter every day. Victoria and Nathan became regular visitors, bringing friends and colleagues who needed event venues or vacation getaways. My sister transformed from someone who barely knew what I did for a living to one of my most enthusiastic advocates. She told anyone who would listen about her sister who owned a resort in Hawaii, who had built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing, who had turned exclusion into opportunity. As I stood on the beach one evening, a year after the wedding, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors, I thought about revenge and what it really meant. I had set out to prove a point, to show my family what they had dismissed, to make them see me. And I had succeeded in that goal. But the real victory was not in their discomfort or realization. The real victory was in knowing that I had built something meaningful, something that would outlast any family drama or personal slight. I had created jobs, provided excellent service, turned a struggling property into a thriving business. I had done it my way, on my own terms, without waiting for anyone's approval. My family had taught me an important lesson when they canceled my ticket. I did not need their validation to know my worth. I had known it all along, buried under years of doubt and hurt and the desperate desire to fit into their vision of success. When they excluded me, they had actually freed me to embrace my own path completely. Revenge, I realized, was not about making others suffer. It was about refusing to let their judgment define you. It was about succeeding so completely in your own right that their opinions became irrelevant. It was about building something beautiful from the ashes of rejection. I had bought a resort to prove I mattered. But in the end, I did not need the resort to prove anything. I had always mattered. I had always been enough. It just took them canceling my ticket for me to finally see it clearly.